2022. And just a few ground rules that will help our conference to run smoothly. First of all, so as it happens nowadays, the event is held in a hybrid format, and we have one presenter present today physically. We will have one panelist joining us, a panel discussion participant joining us today physically, while the rest of the speakers are going to join us online. And those of you who are watching the conference online, we please encourage you to turn off your microphones and to indicate your affiliation, as well as when you are posting the questions, and we encourage everyone to be actively asking the questions, please indicate your name and surname and to whom the question is being addressed. And those who are present, we will follow the same procedures as yesterday. So we will just pass the microphone around and take the questions directly. And since we are having a very interesting and very busy schedule today, I respectfully ask the speakers to stick to the time allocated for your speeches, and otherwise I will just have to interfere at the end of the presentation and will have to cut you. And now just a very few words about the program for today. It is divided into two parts. The first part will bring together a variety of presentations discussing the EOGI skills development demands in different sectors, industries, as well as parts of the world. And in the second part, we will listen to the panel discussion that will seek answers to the questions on how to address the demand and ensure the right skills in the right time and at the right place. So on myself as a moderator, I wish us all a fascinating day with many takeaways. And now I have an honor to give floor to the EO4GEO project coordinator, Milva Carbonaro from GISIG, the European Association operating in the field of geographic information systems. And Milva will introduce the EO4GEO Alliance and its role in the EOGI skills development. Milva, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ines, for this nice introduction. And good morning, everybody. So as mentioned, I'm going to speak to you today about the future, in a way, of the Alliance and the role we want to give to the Alliance regarding EOGI skills building from now on over the next months and years. Next, please. First of all, don't worry, I'm not introducing the project. I'm just saying two little words about the Alliance. As it was recalled also yesterday by our beloved project office from DG DEFIS, Maria Vittoria Dinzeo, EO4GEO was promoted as a sectoral skills alliance within the framework of the blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills. This is a very important starting point, because it was already foreseen in the space strategy for Europe to use a sector skills alliance under the blueprint schema to fund the skills development in the space geoinformation sector. As you can see, there were first 6 pilots sectors selected by the Commission to be funded with a new, the first call for blueprint sector skills alliance, and the space geoinformation sector was the one where EO4GEO consortium applied, and fortunately we were successful. Of course, as said, the main purpose of the Alliance is to work to establish and to put in place an innovative strategy for skills development and capacity building in the space geoinformation sector, and this also supporting the Copernicus user uptake. It's important to say that this is an open network. We have, there is a typo there, so sorry for that, but we have 25 official partners the contractual one, let's say, plus nowadays 50 associates that overall means that EO4GEO is represented in 22 countries, not only European, but also out of Europe. And important is to know that, as mentioned several times also yesterday, we are evolving towards a consolidated network. Let me check if I managed to do this. Yes, okay. Not too much. Okay. So how we do this? Ines already nicely mentioned the vision of the sector skills strategy, which is to foster the growth of the EOGI sector, ensuring a workforce with the right skills in the right place at the right time, which is our motto in a way, guiding our work. But actually, what the Alliance is trying to do, and we try to do for the next years, we hope, it's to realize, to put in place a coordinated approach to skills development in our field, in the EOGI sector. And this with, let's say, some guiding keywords, which are inclusiveness, openness, openness towards other sectors, towards other complementary initiatives. You can see here that we mentioned fostering synergies with Galileo, with the Copernicus Academy and the Relays Network, cross-sectoral cooperation that we already established with several other blueprint projects, for instance, automotive, tourism, cultural heritage, and so on. Of course, what is the ultimate goal is to pool expertise and resources from all relevant stakeholders. That we will see is also a key point within the Path for Skills we spoke about yesterday also, and we heard from Mrs. Fionda from DG Employment. So how we do this? Hello? Okay, no, too much. Kevin, maybe it's better. Okay, this is the right one. Of course, the paramount framework where we have to develop all our activities is the sector skills strategy, which is meant to be a real guiding and reference document for all those who want to really be active in skills development in the space information sector. And this is a key also deliverable of the project as really demanded by the funding bodies, let's say, so DG DEFIS, DG Employment, DG EAC through the executive agency, in order to really foster skills development. It was mentioned that the strategy is organized, let's say, into 5 strategic objectives, each of them also divided in operational objectives, so in total 15 operational objectives. What we are doing right now in view of the long-term action plan is to, let's say, expand the purposes of the 5 strategic objectives to identify concrete activities, actions, and indicators with targets and so on to be reached in the next 3, 5, 10 years. So you will see here, according to the title, the name of the strategic objectives, that we are tackling almost all the aspects that we were mentioning yesterday as key to promote skills development in the sector. So the first strategic objective is related to understanding evolving needs. So this includes all the part related to skills intelligence, so to a systematic and constant collection of evidence, of facts, data, resources, and documentation, also reports regarding the offer of skills and the demand of skills. Of course, also foreseeing the technology and non-technological watch to anticipate future needs. Yesterday, we heard an inspiring presentation. I think it was Natasha Kalen from ISA. She was mentioning that we have to anticipate needs for occupational profiles which have not yet been invented, we thought about. So this is very challenging to anticipate this kind of need, and an accurate system should be put in place to this purpose. Another strategic objective concerns the reinforcing of cooperation. In this strategic objective, there is all the part related to the maintenance of the BOC and the related tools, and also the enlargement towards also other functionalities and so on. But also very important, we can find there the animation of the network of network. Network of networks is a specific concept that we have thought in our projects, where, of course, it is evident that several of the project partners and of the project associates are networks per se. But we must consider that each organization participating in the alliance has its own network. So this is, let's say, the audience towards which all the activities and the strategy should be showcased. We have, of course, the work to design and even provide on the market harmonized curricula and also for user support. And in particular, here we can find the famous one-stop shop portal we were mentioning yesterday, where the ambition is to pull together all the different resources available, and in particular to establish a system, to provide assistance for the learners to be guided along this huge offers, I would say, and find her way to achieve specific skills and maybe be suitable for a specific occupational profile. Of course, another key strategic objective is to develop skills towards different business sectors and value chains. So very important here is the cooperation, the cross-sectoral cooperation. And last but not least, we have citizen engagement through various means, roadshow, job portals, reaching out to user communities. And I'm very glad that we will hear a specific presentation on citizen engagement later on today. So all stay tuned. In general, this is an approach where according to the strategic objectives, we are not trying to involve the typical government, academic and research part and the business part, but it's a quadruple helix model where we have also the involvement of society. But how to go further? We mentioned already, I'm too strong while turning the...
Gentle.
Yeah. Kevin, please. The next. Just one by one. A part, not the overall, but a part of the objectives of the Alliance can be pushed in our view, and also in view of DG Employment, DG Deficit, as we were hearing yesterday, through the launch of a large-scale partnership within the Pact for Skills. The Pact for Skills is a huge initiative launched by the Commission, in particular DG Employment, in November 2020, with the collaboration of all the different sectoral DGs. And it is aimed to really pull the expertise of key stakeholders and also resources through concrete commitments in order to develop the offer of skills in predefined sectors. Very important to be in this loop is also the fact that, as Mrs. Fionda was mentioning yesterday, the Commission is putting in place specific services to support large-scale partnership or networks like the EO4GEO Alliance who wish to establish a large-scale partnership. And so you can see they are putting in place a networking hub, knowledge hub, and also guidance and revenues hub where you can find information, straightforward information on available funding and opportunities. So this is very important as an objective to follow. I'm saying that it is not encompassing the overall EO4GEO Alliance strategy, because the ambition of the EO4GEO Alliance strategy is a little bit wider, since the Pact for Skill is specifically designed for the upskilling and reskilling of the workforce. while in the EO4GEO Alliance, we wanted to really cover the whole spectrum to really attract the young people and young talents forced to study the disciplines. So you know that it is well known that there is a lack of students in STEM disciplines, for instance, and so this is a problem. And of course, within the strategic objective, we also foresee to come back at early stage to the primary school. So in this, to really promote space culture since the youngest ages. Regarding, in particularly, the promotion of a large-scale partnership within the PET for skills, I would like to underline once more what we were commenting yesterday. Yes, in a minute. That they are organizing 14 industrial ecosystem, the large-scale partnership, but our peculiarity, our force, our strength is in the fact that we are transversal to several industrial ecosystems. So this is the work towards we are trying to this is our goal, let's say, to submit this large-scale partnership, one of our goals. And all those indicators related to the strategic objectives that we are designing for the long-term action plan will be part of the, let's say, submission for a large-scale partnership as the concrete commitments by the Alliance. So how to say now, to conclude, that there are several ways to be in the loop and to really act concretely towards the objectives of the Alliance. Of course, for states to join, for those who still have to join. But then there are several ways to contribute. This is just an example, like contributing to the body of knowledge, or use the tools for design your curricula, or to prepare job offers, or to design occupational profile. And also bring in a system, in common, share the results of other lifelong learning and vocational education and training projects, so that to give, enlarge the EO4GEO portfolio, but also give better visibility to your offer, to the offer of who is contributing, and of course help preparing, providing ideas, submitting new projects to realize the long-term action plan. So, said that, the last slide is just a wish to invite those who are not yet in the partnership to join us. Is the web portal of EO4GEO, where too much again, where you can find all the resources, all the products of the project. You can download the sector strategy and so on, and of course become associate if you wish. So thank you very much for your attention. And I hope you enjoy the remaining presentation. Stay with us.
Thank you very much. Very energetic
yes, too much.
and also the comprehensive overview of the EO4GEO Alliance. Do we have any questions posted online from the participants who are watching us? If not, is there anything to be asked by the audience present? Well, Milva, then while maybe people are waiting, I have one question. So what is the main challenge that you foresee for this massive partnership? EO4GEO has managed to pull together in these 4 years, 25 partners plus 50 associated partners. I can tell you, I had a meeting on Monday with the European Space Agency, and I was telling them that I was coming to Brussels for the final conference, and they were saying, tell me who is not part of the EO4GEO project.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that was really well recognized.
That's very good to know.
But still, as we know that, and we heard that yesterday, so we have networks developing all around, different initiatives, networks of networks even, similar to the concept what EO4GEO is exactly is aiming for and has started. So where do you see the challenge for sustaining of the Alliance?
The challenge is manifold because indeed the challenge is to mobilize the resources also in terms of human effort of all these stakeholders who comes from different, have their own different perspective, because there are business, academia, there are research centers, and of course we want to push it even more towards regions. The challenge would be really to mobilize the resources to act concretely towards the objective of the Alliance. Of course, one of the challenges is bad to say, but it's also to find the way to have financed at least some of the key elements we want to develop that, of course, can't be developed without a specific sustain. But for this, we really trust in the fact that the established collaboration, we have a lot of also active partners among the associated partners, and already lots of ideas popped up. We know we are closely following the call for proposals from Erasmus+, from Horizon Europe, from other sources of funding. There are huge opportunities, and I encourage all partners to really check with their national authorities what are the opportunities for skills development under the Resilience and Recovery Fund. So yes, it is a challenge, but I mean the collaboration is already quite strong. And we really wish to, let's say, transmit this also to newcomers. That's all.
The cornerstone has been laid, and now it's the challenge to build the house.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you very much. We will make a very smooth transfer now to actually the Mentimeter poll, as we did yesterday. So I encourage everyone to take your tools which you have at hand, and just to provide input to what Milva was asking, to consider like where different organizations could contribute for the future of the EO4GEO Alliance. And we have one question where we are seeking the conference attendance input. So first, everyone is invited to open the platform menti.com or use the QR code and enter the code 5277-2226. I can see for those who are present nodding that the platform is ready, so I guess we can open the question. Okay, and here comes the question. So apart from what Milva already gave as few of the examples where organizations can contribute to EO4GEO Alliance, so where do you see potential contribution from your organization? And it would be very nice if you also stated the name of your organization while answering. Okay, so we have maybe add a bit more human resources expertise, content on remote sensing from Jena, especially radar training sessions, sample data, training dissemination. KU Leuven lead book developments, prepare new proposals, tools for citizen science, information about opportunities. Link to EOTech DevNet that was mentioned yesterday, GIP training, contribution to the Alliance networking, dissemination, veto, trainings, webinars. Well, wonderful. We can see that there is much more potential that has, apart from the one that has already been pulled together. So we will collect all the answers and we'll forward this information to the project and alliance management, and I think that is something to utilize very practically for the future. Thank you all for contributing with your ideas and suggestions. So we will move now further with our next speaker, and that will be Ms. Babs Dumont, the Human Resources Director, which was, as we saw, that human resources dimension could be added to the Alliance. So the Director of the Geographic Information Management. And just a few words about our guest speaker today. Babs spent her whole professional career in geospatial business and knows the challenges of finding and keeping the right staff on board in this high-tech and fast-evolving market. So what is the current skills development demand in the public, in the private EO and GI sector? That is the core question that Babs is going to address in her presentation. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we're ready to listen to you.
I do share my screen, I suppose.
Well, you give it a try, and if in case we have technical challenge, so we have the presentation that we will be then sharing from our computers. But let's give it a try. Perfect.
Okay.
Hello. The slide is on.
Yes, hello everyone. A very good and beautiful morning to all of you in Brussels and online. I would like to present to you today the challenges that we face as a private company in this fast evolving world of geospatial information. We are offering smart geo insights. That's also our little tagline that you see in our logo. As introduced very nicely, I am Babs Dumont, HR Director of GIM, and GIM stands for Geographic Information Management. So what is, who is GIM? GIM, we have two sites actually in Leuven, where I'm currently, and in Gembloux, a little bit further in Belgium, on the Walloon-speaking part. We do have 27 years and a little bit more of experience in the field of geodata and geoinformation. We have 70 geo experts at your service, as we call them. We serve more than 750 happy customers. Our customers are governments, but also private, on the private market, and industries and telecom. So that's the three pillars of our customer groups. And we did train more than 2,500 professionals already with our training center. So we also do have a training center offering trainings in geographical information and Earth observation. So what are we heading for? What is our direction or our goal? We do believe that we really want to make, and we already have a basis, but we really are heading towards this digital twin. And so a digital copy of the built environment that models reality and enables to shape the future. So you see there a picture of the reality, well, a picture, and then a digital twin, a part of it on top of that. So this is what we are aiming for, and the whole ecosystem around it as well. So not only the data, but also the ecosystem that makes a digital twin to what it should be. Now, I started 18 years ago at GIM, and I studied bioengineering at the university in Leuven, and I also did a thesis in geographical information. And when I started at GIM, I started as a GIS analyst, as it was called back in the days, with a GIS desktop application on my, it was not yet a laptop back then, it was a computer. And that's where we did our spatial information and our the toolings and so on. quite soon after that, we realized that GIS was more than only the desktop application, and that there is a whole spatial data infrastructure around it. So that's the SDI. So not only the desktop GIS, but also the database, the policies, the metadata, the people, the hardware, the processes, and so on. So it was more like a spatial data information system, but also that became a little bit outdated. And then nowadays, or even also that is outdated, we are talking about digital twinning and making a digital copy of the reality. And nowadays people are even talking about metaverse. So you see that there is a kind of a big evolution in this very, very fastly changing landscape. So we go from GIS desktop to SDI, digital twinning, and metaverse. So actually in this world, we as a company also have to continuously reorient our scope and strategy. And so how do we do that? We adapt our expertise for the collection, integration, and exchange of data. So we continuously have to adapt, and we do that based on three pillars. The first one is geospatial AI. That's relatively new in our company. So I think we started with that 3 years that we really have deep learning computer vision experts in-house. And so what do we do in this geospatial AI pillar? We do build smart geo insights by applying artificial intelligence techniques like these computer vision and so on geographic data sets. Second pillar is geodata integration. Geodata integration is to process more, better, and always faster data. So data coming from different sources. It always becomes more and better and faster. So that's the challenge we face. And you see that in the picture we use this little visual overlay effect as this drawing on top of the image. That's just to show to you that we model reality and that we add an extra dimension to it so that you can achieve better insights in what is happening. And the third pillar is GeoICT. GeoICT, we build scalable IT platforms to ensure that the flow of this geodata between people and organizations can really happen. So it makes it a kind of ecosystem. So that was in a nutshell what we as a company, what GIM is doing. And I would like to present to you the challenges that we face related also to EO, Earth observation and geographic information skills. First of all, recruitment. So that's finding the good people. We always have to advance our hiring tactics. Secondly, I will talk to you about retention, because once you have the people, you would like to keep them. So what do we do to train people, but also it's not only learning and development. So there is a bit more, of course, than that. And thirdly, what is our challenge as a training provider in this fastly evolving world? How do we evolve our training portfolio? So that's what I will explain to you. First of all, challenge one, recruitment. So I told you already, we have to advance our hiring tactics. When I started 18 years ago, that was as a GIS analyst in our company. And we also back then had what we called GeoICT developers. So these were the most common profiles, geo-related and Earth observation related profiles in our company. Nowadays, we are more looking for geodata engineers. So that is a bit broader than a GIS analyst. And we are also looking for developers. But I put the GeoICT between brackets because that's what we train. So we are looking for developers, and we train them the geo dimension. That's what we currently do. And we are also really actively looking for data scientists. So that is a new profile actually since a couple of years in our company. We do work, but where do we find these people? So we do work, or what are our tactics actually is We do work a lot with universities and graduate schools in Belgium to start with, in Brussels, Liège, Leuven, Henna-Lux, where we have close contact with the geography masters, bioengineering, geomatics in Liège, for example. The data scientists, people that study, for example, big data masters or physics in remote sensing, and that's where we hire or try to hire these juniors. But we also like to have a little look abroad. So in the Netherlands, we like to work with the University of Delft, where there is a Master of Science in Geomatics. Also, we have a lot of interns and job students in house. And master thesis supervision. That's what we do. We even have an intern right now working from the data visualization and mapping studies in the Netherlands. So that's a tactic, is hire juniors and train them like in a kind of GIS academy, that we train them to become good geodata engineers, data scientists, or geo ICT developers. To cover peaks and lows, we do also work with temporary workforces. Freelancers, so we have a database of freelancers who we can ask to help us out for a couple of months if the workload becomes too big. Once you have the people, so that was recruitment. Once you have the people, you want to keep them, of course. So what did we do? We have a very strong focus on learning and development, but not only that, because only by learning and development people like to learn, but there's more needed. So we also have a very strong company culture where we have a lot of very high educated people. So we really want to give as much autonomy and decision power as possible to every collaborator in our company, and that is really reflecting in our company. We also do active career coaching, succession planning, which is a very typical HR thing to do, but it is important. We do, of course, have to benchmark and make sure that our compensation and benefit packages are competitive in the benchmarks with our competitors. And we also have, of course, to combine work, fun, and family. We're a very flexible company with respect to that. I will focus on our learning and development program. This is more in line with the conference today. So I will present to you our L&D program for this year. So how do we train our juniors, or even people that are already have some experience, but we have for everyone a training trajectory actually in our company. And that consists out of internal training and on-the-job learning. So we have a very broad onboarding program with recurrent internal trainings, so colleagues teaching colleagues. We have a dedicated program about AI rollout in our company, and I will explain a bit more about that later. We do also, because that's very technical skilled, of course, at the AI rollout, but we do also work on soft skills like leadership development. We have a Gym Ambassador program, which means that we do believe that in everybody from within his or her role can make a difference or can create impact and create value at the customer. So it's a customer relation program, and we have a specific program for project managers and Scrum Masters. So that's a lot that we have as a small company, in a L&D program, but we do really believe that it's very important. Next to that, we also offer external trainings for our people, so they can go abroad. We actually encourage them to go abroad and to follow training, because you also learn a lot by following training externally. And then, of course, we also have online learning platform subscriptions like LinkedIn Learning, Kaggle, and so on and so on. So that's in a nutshell the L&D program of GIM this year. Let me now just focus or use this or give you an example about what do we do in this L&D program, and that's the AI rollout in the company. Now, maybe just a few words about what do we do with AI at GIM, and I have taken two little examples. There in the upper left corner, there you see what we call super resolution. So what do we do there? We receive the image on the left and we make the image on the right. And so when I for the first time saw this, then it was like, how do we do that? Well, with artificial intelligence. I don't know how exactly these our data scientists do that, but they train the computer to make and to recognize and to sharpen actually an image. And of course, with an image on the right, you can extract much more information than with the image on the left. So that's one example of what we are doing. And then feature extraction, so extracting information from images, that's the upper right corner example. It's capturing covered driveways. So you see there in the little picture, you see there is a street with soft shoulders and driveways. And with the artificial intelligence programs and algorithms, we were able to identify, or at least to select these houses that have a driveway. So that's an additional layer on a land cover map. So just to give you an idea of what we do with AI in the company, and then we have made a big rollout program, as you could call it. And why would we do this? Well, we have different profiles in the company, and they're all experts in their field. So we have geodata engineers, we have data scientists, we have developers, but they need to understand each other and they need to cooperate and help and challenge each other to improve, of course, the efficiency on our projects. And that's why we would like to make them work better together. So we did 7 things in this AI rollout program. First of all, the vision strategy, that's clear that you need to know where you're heading to. Then we were looking to the outside view, like what is needed on the market? What do our customers need? What could we partner up with some specialists in AI? What is the competition doing? What kind of networks are existing, and so on. And then we listed for the different profiles we have in the house, what is needed from AI skills? Who needs to know what AI related? So that I will also show you in a minute, because I think you're very interested in that one. And then, of course, we did a specific learning and development track for AI rollout. We had a little look at project delivery, and we also updated our training portfolio. And last but not least, we're also recruiting, and by recruiting, we gain knowledge, of course, in the company. So just focus on this. What are the required AI skills per profile? I will not read them all, but it's just to give you the idea that we set for example, developers and architects, they need to be able to identify possible machine learning use cases. That's also needed for business developers, but they also need additional know what key machine learning concepts are. Next to that, we also want, for example, project managers to really understand the process. For us, a geodata engineer also needs to understand Linux, Python, understanding the key concepts of data for machine learning models. And last but not least, our data scientists, they need to know everything of what is going on here. So now that we know who needs to know what in the company, we could roll out programs on demand. So bespoke for every role, we could make a different kind of track in our company. I just added this slide. I will definitely not go over it, but this is the list that we made, what the competences are required for a data scientist in our company. So feel free to have a look afterwards. So that's we now have the skills, and what are we rolling out then? Firstly, we have an internal training. We made an internal training about AI, and it was specifically for business developers, for geodata engineers, for project managers, and for developers and architects. So it were 4 different trainings, actually. Well, the basis was the same, but the focus was a bit different. And then we are also, as we speak, because it's going on next week, we are organizing internal lunch meetings on Python to train our geodata engineers. So it's first the basics of Python, because Python is really the thing to know before you can start in an AI, deep learning, machine learning, computer vision project at GIM. So that's where we are currently at, and it's really ongoing. So it's a real life example, I would say, how we do that. We do have also made a list of online trainings on LinkedIn Learning and Kaggle that are actually offered to our geodata engineers, and they are encouraged also to have a look at these trainings online to keep them up to speed and to be able to make them talk to each other.
Ups.
That was,
may I kindly
yes.
ask you to wrap up?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I will.
Gradually, yes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
So the last challenge is our training center. So I talked about recruitment, then retention, but we also have the third challenge is about evolving our training center. So we do offer classroom trainings, training on demand, or a training program for our organization. We have 20 different trainings in portfolio. And it's existing at GIM since the early days. What did we do? We have, I told you already that we have a new training, so artificial intelligence for geodata and also building information models for GIS professionals. So we also constantly have to evolve our portfolio. We do also offer open source trainings. This is not new, but it's very popular, so we keep on offering these trainings. And then we still have the classics, of course. I started my explanation that I used a GIS desktop. Well, it was ArcGIS back in the day. We still offer these trainings, and we also offer FME, which is an ETL, extract transform load tool, just to show you that we also in our training portfolio, of course, constantly have to evolve based on the needs of the market and the evolving technology. So this was it. Thank you for your attention. I don't know if there's a question. Probably you can help me with that.
Thank you very much for this really impressive presentation, and also the variety of the training approaches you use for recruiting and retaining and let's say developing your workforce. Is there any question? Yeah, we have one question from Milva, so we can take one question now, please.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the very comprehensive and interesting presentation. And regarding the variety of training formats that you are using for your staff, maybe it's a silly question, but I'm curious to understand the format of the lunch meeting that you use to train your staff on Python and so on.
Yeah, good question. So, well, the past 2 years it was a virtual event. So it was just a colleague that prepared the training, and then everybody could follow via Teams meeting like we are doing right now. But luckily, next week it will be a live event. So, well, and a little bit of hybrid as well as we are doing today. But we encourage people to come to the office, and it's a lunch meeting. So people are offered a sandwich in between. That's from 12 till 2. Making exercises with one of the colleagues that is really teaching them and helping them, looking over their shoulders. So it's a very informal way of following training, but people really do like this kind of internal trainings. Yes.
Thank you. Even though we are running out of time, I still want to use myself in the role of moderator and ask one question. Do you see generation differences? And how do these generation differences actually impact the training approaches you use?
And you mean generation differences in the external people
the employees that you're recruiting, because obviously there are new generations coming in the labor market, and they have been growing up in different environments, using different technologies. So whether and how does that have an impact on how you develop your training strategies and tools you apply?
Yes, very good question. Thank you. So generation differences. We do have quite a young population at GIM, and especially since we are focusing on hiring juniors. But also, what is important is that people that have a more senior profile or a bit older, they do have more enterprise responsibilities. So and we really work with coaches and role models. So they become experts in their field, and then they were asked, for example, to give lunch meetings and to really work with others. But I don't feel that there is a big generation gap in skills or something like that. So that's not really the case. I do appreciate, and I must say that also people that are not so junior are also very much up to speed with the technology and the tools that we use and in the world we're living in. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thanks once again for joining us today and giving a very interesting presentation. So let's give another round of applause. So we will move forward with the skills development demands in the public sector, and I have an honor to give floor or to give screen to our next speaker, Ingrid Vanden Berge, the General Manager of National Geographic Institute of Belgium and a member of the board of several scientific institutes. She's also the co-chair of the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. Sorry, Ingrid, for being delayed in the program, but it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. So the screen is yours.
Hello and good morning, everybody from Sarajevo. I'm here because we are having our annual General Assembly of Eurogeographics, which is the Association of Mapping and Cadastral Agencies in Europe. Now, because my connection is not so good, I would prefer that the presentation is given from the computer in the room, if that's possible. Because and I will turn off my camera, but I'm here in Sarajevo saying hi to everybody. And, okay, there we go. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a public sector view on the skills and the skills gap that we are facing. And so if I may have the next slide, just to give you the context. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is my view of the role of public sector in geospatial information. You have there a water tower, which is not far from Leuven, and it's just like water. I think that the government should assure that when people need geographic information, they can open the tap and the geo information is there. It flows. You can use it. They don't have to worry where it comes from. They don't have to worry if how it's produced or whatever. You need the data and you have access and you use it. And this is what I see as the role of the National Mapping Agency. We have to make sure that the data is there, that it's quality assured, you can access it 24/7 and so on and so on. So I really like this picture to show it's just like you have water and electricity, you need infrastructures, you need content, and then you provide a service to the citizen. And whether or not you have to pay for the water, that's another discussion. I will not open that discussion or that debate. But still, this is how I see that we as public sector should be organized so that people, citizens, companies, other parts of government can have access to this data. Next slide, please. So I will talk on behalf of, or I'll give my view from an NMCA point of view. And what is an NMCA? Well, it's a National Mapping and Cadastral Agency. In some countries, the National Mapping and Cadastre is in the same agency, like in Holland, for instance, where Cadastre has both aspects. But in Belgium, the National Mapping Agency, that's the NGI, where I am the head. And then we have our colleagues from the Cadastral Land Registry Organization, which is the Algemene Administratie Patrimonium Documentatie, so the General Administration of Patrimonial Information. Next slide, please. So these governmental services, they have been going through a very big change, and especially for us in the mapping agency, the cadastre the change is maybe not so important, but for us, when I started at NGI, the change was already taking place. But in the early days of mapping agencies, we were producing. We took a photo and a white sheet of paper, and in the end, you had a map of a certain area. We produced everything from A to Z ourselves. Now, when, let's say about 30 years ago, NGI was already saying, well, why should we collect information that we can get from somebody else more easy? And so we made agreements with the railroad company, with the electricity distribution company, and so on, to get their information from them instead of collecting all of it ourselves. It's what we used to do before was we would have the as-built maps of the railroads, and we would be digitizing the tracks to put them in our database. Now, these as-built maps were maybe CID systems. So when we convinced the railroads to shift into a GIS approach, we could use the railroad network from the NMBS just like that without having to do extra work. So this is the integrator part. Instead of being just a producer, we started integrating data which were produced by others. And then in about 10 years ago, no, more than 10 years ago, when we talked about our strategy 2020, we said, well, okay, in fact, it was when the Inspire directive had to be made into reality, we developed what we call the geo-broker role. And the geo-broker role, it's not just about producing data or integrating data for a use, but also to make sure that the data of the government are accessible. In the first place, make the data of the government accessible for the outside world. This is what Inspire Directive was all about. But also the other way around, make sure that the government has access to the data that it needs to do a better job. So that is, for instance, procuring data which are commercially available, like navigational data, so that government can use them. Because for some of the government use, we need those data. And instead of everybody doing a small procurement, we were bringing this together and having a one contract for the government as a whole. But also in this geo-broker role, we try to answer needs, bring together the needs of sectors like, for instance, the fire brigades, where you see they have a big need for information, and it's very important that they fight the fire off one map and not other very different maps. So that's the developments that we were putting into place. And so in our Vision 2030, which we are working now, this geo-broker role is growing, but also the integrator role is growing, because we see that there are much more sources available, and through AI and machine learning and other techniques, we know that we will be able to use much more unstructured sources than we could before. And so we see this integrator role growing and the producer role becoming smaller. What is also the case is that we are integrating data that are not part of our own reference data. Next slide, please. So when you look at all these things we want to do, you can imagine that the jobs we advertise are changing. And so traditionally we would be advertising to hire surveyors or cartographers or geographers, IT programmers, staff, and so on. Now, in our new jobs that we have been advertising the last years, you see that we advertise for project managers or business analysts, AI specialists, enterprise architect, database specialists, application developers. So you see the change of being a very technically production-focused entity to being a partner for developing the geo capabilities of the people we work with. And so this shows in the jobs that we have. And this is also a totally different set of skills that we need in our organization. And as was said by the previous speaker, part of this is done by getting new staff to join us, but also we invest in having people inside the organization develop the skills that we need for the future. And so that's where the training comes in, and the skills development. Next slide, please. You will see how do we invest in the people. And so in general, we have different ways of investing in our staff. And I'm a very convinced person that it's important to invest in diversity, because when you have a diverse population, you will attract people that maybe otherwise you would not get or see. Or not be addressing in your calls for people. So investing in diversity, it's of course investing in gender diversity. And I must say, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I see some progress, but it's not enough. There's still not enough women in geospatial, and there is a whole world of a whole workforce of potential geospecialists that we do not reach. We do not reach them at the stage where they have to make a choice for their training. What will they study? And we do not reach them after they have studied. And so there, I think it's very important that there are initiatives like the Women in Geospatial and the GeoChicas, just two examples of international networks where a lot of effort is put into showing to young women why they can live their dream in the and how they can live their dream in the geospatial industry. Because when you talk to young girls of age of 15, 16, and this is very different from young boys in general, and I know I'm making stereotypes, but it is there is scientific documentation on that. Young girls at that age, they dream of saving the world. It's not a miracle by accident that that the climate girls are girls. Young boys at that age, they dream of becoming very rich or a famous musician, or maybe I think the period of becoming a fireman is just gone then. But they'll be wanting to be champion in world champion in FIFA on the PlayStation or something. But young girls at that age, they want to save the world, and they make their choices in their study with this idea of what can I study so I can save the world. And so they'll go into medicine or these related studies, and they don't think about STEM choices, because that's for that's not related to people. And I think it's very important that we from within the industry, we show to people around us how passionate we are and how much what we do can contribute to saving the world, especially to those girls, because everything about climate change, it's about geospatial information. You cannot do anything in climate change if you don't have the geospatial fundamentals to support what you are doing, to base your decisions on, and to measure and see the progress or the bad evolution of the situation. So in investing in diversity and talking to young people about how important geospatial is for these kinds of subjects where young people are worried about, I think it's very important. You can also explain to the boys why geospatial is important, because when you're on a football field, it's also Kevin De Bruyne is a great player because he's in the right spot at the right time. That's also geospatial if you want. So this is how we could invest in young people to come into our industry. Now, we also see, and I've put two examples on the slide, how we can invest in diversity by looking at people who are not the standard WizKid, but who have very strong competences which are not easy to manage. And I mentioned two organizations. One is a private company called Paswerk, and they employ people with an autism spectrum. I don't want to say disorder because it's a different order, but they employ highly qualified, very skilled professionals, and they are a regular company, not a social inclusion company. But they have these group of highly trained professionals with autism spectrum, and so they give these people the necessary stability and framework which they need. But these people are extremely efficient if it's about testing or programming, because they are so continuous and consistent in how to apply the rule to this job. So I would like to encourage you, if you have the possibility, to look at the specific competences that these autism spectrum people can offer to our industry and the work we do. And the second example is the LIFT. The LIFT is a school also for people with autism spectrum, but let's say the other side, the people who are so affected by their disorder and who don't have the very high intelligence to compensate, and so they are not able to study in a normal secondary school. And the LIFT gives them an education, a training to be a GI person. So for instance, Vito will collaborate with the LIFT for training of artificial intelligence material. So for instance, Vito has a system to predict the yields of pear tree orchards. And to be able to use that system, they have to train the computer to recognize pears hanging on a tree. And so the people from the LIFT will identify every pear on the image, so that the machine can be trained to detect pears. And so
Ingrid, sorry to intervene. Can I kindly ask you to come gradually to the conclusions, and we're running out of time.
Yes, I know. I started 10 minutes late. So
yeah, it's fine. Yeah, that's why gradually.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's important that we when we talk about skills, and there are skills which are very useful to us, but which we probably don't always see. So at NGI, for the training of our staff, like in other organizations, we hire people we ask a certain level of knowledge, but we will always do training on the job, because nobody comes in knowing exactly what we do or how we do that. So training in the job is important, but we have a very strong engagement in knowledge exchange programs. And so within the mapping agencies, we have the EuroGeographics, which is our association where I'm today. And there we have knowledge exchange network. So we are few people in our organization who do a certain job, but in other countries there are also few people doing the same job, and we bring them together and have these very strong networks of knowledge exchange. Within the Euro SDR, which is the Spatial Data Research Organization of the mapping agencies, there we have training programs where every year there is an online course with 4 subjects, and those subjects, they change every time. It can be about linked data, and then another time it will be about high precision positioning and new techniques around geodesy. So it's very diverse, but always oriented towards the needs of mapping agencies. And then the last network I would like to mention is the United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management, where we are developing frameworks for the world to be used at national level for developing the national capacity for geoinformation. And there is a very important part of the work is also the knowledge transfer from developing to more from developed to more developing countries, or from very knowledge to newly starting teams within this geospatial industry. So these are the exchange programs which are very useful to us, and I think some of the information that you have and some of the results of your work, I will certainly take them to UNGGIM, because I think there is a big demand especially from developing countries, to have online material and online training capacity or training possibilities. So thank you for all this work.
Well, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation, and also highlighting the aspects that have not been mentioned so much before, like, for instance, the importance and potential of the diversity and different skills and talents that we have all around that have not been utilized and maybe not spotted even. So this was really, really valuable. Is there any question? Yes, we have one question in the audience. Giacomo, please.
With reference to your list of new jobs that you are, let's say, requiring, how would you judge the offers? Is there an adequate level of people with the right skills with respect to the new requirements, or not yet? Thank you.
So what we experience is that it's very difficult for us to recruit the people that we need, and we have for instance the enterprise architect. Up to now, we have not found the people we want to do this job. So it's a very difficult for some of to market, and
unfortunately, Ingrid, we are having connection challenges, so we cannot hear very clearly what you are saying. Yeah, I think we appreciate the first part of the answer, and unfortunately, this is what happens nowadays, and that can happen any minute, unforeseen. So we have to cut off this presentation at this point and move forward with the next speaker. So once again, thanks to the.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ingrid. Thanks for your presentation and for your answer also to the question. So we will move further with the next speaker, and we will have a look. Good morning, and we will go to the subsector of the public sector, and we will discuss the need for EOGI skills in local and regional governments. And our next presentation is given by Dr. Francisco Wallenstein, the chairman of the board of directors of RAEGE, Azores Association, an R&D entity that uses space-based technologies. And within the scope of his functions, Francisco Wallenstein represents the Azores government in the Nereus and Copernicus Relays network. So I hope the presentation will run well, and good morning once again, and pleasure to have you with us today.
Good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
And can you see my presentation as well?
Unfortunately not.
Mine, I think it's not.
I was trying to
colleagues are
share my
saying-
screen. How can I share? Maybe if you have...
Exactly. Our proposal would be that maybe we go, or it's coming.
Is
in
it
the
now?
slide. Yes, it's just not in the presentation mode. If you could switch it
Is
to
it now in
presentation
presentation
mode.
mode? Wait.
No, no, no.
And now?
It's coming. Yes, yes. So all set.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for this small technical problem in the
No
beginning.
worries.
So thank you for inviting me to be here speaking about Earth observation and geographical information skills in the Azores and the need for them. Actually, I'm here also on behalf of the regional government of the Azores. I work in public administration, so the perspective that I will be speaking about here is from someone that is trying to look at the problem from public administration perspective, from the entities that would like this sector to develop and try to implement it throughout the whole sectors of the society. So regarding Earth observation data, we have been in the Azores, in the regional government, involved in several different initiatives trying to either assess the capabilities of public administration departments using Earth observation in different perspectives. We have entered projects like DorisNet, and Marine Earth Observation, which was a pre-commercial procurement trying to develop or to promote research and development in the Earth observation application sector to maritime affairs. Three different training sessions, one regarding marine for outermost and maritime regions. So there have been several occasions where we were trying to not only assess what was the level of usage of Earth observation data within public administration, but also after realizing that, in fact, although people knew about this source of information for geographical information systems, they were not using them very frequently for different reasons. And so we then tried to implement some training opportunities for people in the Azores to try and enhance their capabilities to use Earth observation in geographical information systems. We also have an idea of what geographical information platforms there are in the Azores, and like Ingrid mentioned, the regional government works as a provider for geographical information in several platforms. We have different departments. Unfortunately, I think one of the challenges here that I might mention further on this presentation is that the platforms are not all concentrated in one platform. They are scattered throughout different departments in the regional government. So we have for the Territory Administration Department a platform with geographical information, and one for the Maritime Affairs, and one for the Water Management Department. So although there are geographical information platforms, so then it's natural these days it's impossible not to work with them, and they are available to the public. They are not easy accessible, and they are not all joined in one resource platform. Regarding the skills related to Earth observation and geographical information systems, the different sectors of the Azores educational sector do have available offer for skills development, namely for the University of the Azores. There is a group of the space applications research within the university that deals with Earth observation data applied to geographical information systems for different purposes, for maritime research, for forestry research, for agriculture research. So at university level, we do have some offer. There is the pool of technological schools in the region. Some of them offer geographical information skills, the platform management skills, and but unfortunately not with Earth observation resources applied to these platforms, and there is also the global or the regional schools network, where neither geographical information nor Earth observation is really offered to the students. So the offer of skills development in the different sectors of education is quite void of this combination of Earth observation to geographical information systems. So, in my perspective, from someone working in public administration dealing with this issue, one of the big challenges is to identify what target audiences we want to provide these skills, and also to identify what exactly are the skills we are talking about. Geographical information systems and Earth observation applications, the skills to deal with them can be either geographical information in general, how to use these systems and to put them to work in whatever your application is, but also can be artificial intelligence and augmented reality and several different application skills levels. So I think the challenges here are to identify what target audience we want to focus on, and then once you have the target audience, identify what skills they do, and then provide suitable and tailor-made skills for these target audiences. Because although there are some offers of skill development tools for this area, for geographical information systems using Earth observation, sometimes they are quite generic and they are not really tailored to different targets. And like Ingrid said, for example, the autist sector of people and might be quite interesting, and I believe the tools should be adapted to these targets, for example. In terms of the Azores, what are the opportunities? I can tell you about the concentrated approach that we are trying to do in general to space in the Azores, which is the Azores strategy for space. And within this strategy, we have one main objective, which is to build capacity, and crossing that with development of applications based on spatial data. I think we have, and also fostering scientific dissemination and scientific education for space. Here is the perfect combination to look into this skills development in Earth observation applied to geographical information systems. And within this strategy, we are getting involved with the different departments of public administration, and trying to promote this type of skills, or the offer of skills development tools. Within this strategy, we're also involved with the EO4GEO workshop, follow-up workshop at the University of the Azores for development in the Azores coastal and maritime sector in July to 2021, and it was quite interesting. And these are the types of tools that I think we need to proliferate to make sure that the offer of skills development tools are available for the different target groups that we can identify. So in terms of our future action regarding the strategy and this thematic, like the tools developed in this EO4GEO project, we have to keep up with other initiatives to develop tools for up and reskilling. And here, for up and reskilling, the identification of target groups and exactly what skills to be developed is very important. And then identify creative ways to mobilize the education sector for Earth observation in general. And here, I think, like Ingrid said, that geographical information should be like water. I think Earth observation as data as a source of information should also be like water to all educational levels. And I think geographical information and Earth observation data cannot be dissociated. And so I think it's really important to find creative ways to mobilize the traditional educational sector so that from very, very little children are confronted with this source of information, with these tools that are available free online, and make them use them as they use letters to form words and words to form sentences. Because if they do it from very small, they will naturally use it when they are becoming entrepreneurial and trying to find ways of making a living or creative ways of providing solutions for needs that they identify in the world. So these are the challenges for our future action in the Azores regarding Earth observation and geographical information skills development here in our region. I thank you for the attention, and I'm available for questions if you have some. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francisco, for the presentation, and we're ready to take the questions. Yes, we have a question from Danny.
A very quick question. Is there in the Azores also private companies that can support skills development and offer training, or is that absent? Do you have to organize with the public sector your own trainings, or how does, or you work together with universities, but are there also private companies?
Yes, I think private sector is more than welcome to provide these skills development tools, and the Azores government, of course, also works with the private sector and does have departments that connect directly to companies. So within this strategy, there will be the strategy is still in the definition of the strategy phases. So in the implementation of the strategy, I'm sure there will be financial package for different activities, and the private sector mobilization towards goals that are in the strategy will be there. And there are already some initiatives that provide free training for programming for programming skills that then that are funded, for example, by private companies, and then they can gather the students to join their teams. So of course the private sector is more than welcome, and it does play a very important role in this sector.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for being with us this morning. Once again, an applause.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And we will take one more presentation before the coffee break, and we are coming back to the topic of citizen science. And as we heard this morning, for Milva giving the introduction about or let's say revealing the EO4GEO Alliance and that it's based and embedded in the quadrilopic helix. And we have government and we have but society has come in as a component in the alliance. So I indeed have a true pleasure to welcome Linda C., the Senior Research Scholar from the Novel Data Ecosystems and Sustainability Research Group, to talk about citizen science in the EO and GI sector. Linda, it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning, and the screen is yours.
Okay, thanks very much. First of all, can you hear me and can you see my slides?
We can hear you, and we also see the slides in the presentation mode.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Okay, yes, so thank you. My name is Linda C. I'm from the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. So this is a research institute located in Austria, just outside of Vienna. And thank you very much for inviting me to talk about citizen science. I thought a good starting point might be to go to the sectoral skills strategy document, where strategic objective 5 is to encourage citizen engagement, citizen science practices, hands-on activities, to enhance the inclusion and recognition of the value of Earth observation and geographic information applications in everyday life. But I think I would start first with defining what is citizen science. So we take that to mean the involvement of citizens in knowledge production. I mean, there are lots of different definitions of citizen science, but that's the one that we generally use because it's quite inclusive. But I also wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there's lots of different terms. And it's really because it's coming from different disciplines. So citizen science is coming more from sort of conservation, biology. Then we have volunteer geographic information really coming more from the spatial science field, crowdsourcing coming from more of a business field. But there's lots of different terms available. In terms of VGI, so volunteer geographic information, one of the most projects I think that's most famous for VGI. It's OpenStreetMap. Most people might be familiar with OpenStreetMap. This is just volunteers getting together and creating a map of the world, basically, very rich and very detailed. And in the process, these volunteers gain skills in things like image interpretation of very high resolution satellite imagery, as well as digitizing different features. And I just wanted to point out that I did search for the term citizen science in your body of knowledge, and I couldn't find it. So I could find volunteer geographic information, I could find crowdsourcing, but not citizen science. So I just found that to be interesting. Okay, so at EASA, we approach citizen science in terms of Earth observation and geographic information because of lack of reference data. So lack of reference data in terms of training algorithms, so classification algorithms to create remotely sensed products. That might be land cover, land use products, for example, but also the information needed to validate these products. So as end users, we, for example, use land cover maps, but we want to know if they are fit for purpose. So we may do our own validation of these products, or you could even use citizen science to formally validate products coming from remote sensing. But also lack of reference data for monitoring. So lack of environmental data, lack of data for SDGs, for example. Also perceptual data. That kind of information can be very useful, and of course it's geographical because it's often georeferenced, but it can also be linked to Earth observation. For example, a simple example might be green space. So you can have greening from Earth observation, and you can put that together with perceptions of green space in a city. Okay, so the types of tasks that can engage citizens in the Earth observation field in particular, but also, of course, this is also GI. So visual interpretation of imagery. So because Google Maps and Google Earth originally and Microsoft Bing have provided or given access to very high resolution imagery, this can be used in applications, and then you can invite citizens to do visual interpretation of this imagery. Also, of course, high resolution satellite imagery, so increasing imagery coming from Planet, from Sentinel, so moving back to Copernicus. Also drone and aerial imagery, so it's not just satellite imagery, as well as photographs, so a different view of the Earth, like a street view image instead of a bird's eye view. This can all be used as part of citizen science projects and visual interpretation. And then a second type of task is in situ data collection. And there are many different citizen science projects now that use mobile phones to send people out into the field and they collect information. So examples are land cover, land use, species observations are a very big one, habitat monitoring, even thermal comfort. So that's urban heat islands. So there's lots of different examples of in situ data collection in a citizen science domain using mobile phones. And then there's low-cost sensors, wearables, low-cost air pollution sensors, temperature, etc. So there's lots of different ways of gathering in situ data collection, in situ data rather, that then fills this gap in terms of reference data. And then citizens can also be engaged as stakeholders in co-creation of solutions. So in the idea of living labs or building your own kits, DIY kits. So for example, air pollution monitors. There have been projects to build air pollution monitors as part of citizen science. And then finally, I'd like to say that it's not just about data collection and asking citizens to provide data. Of course, this raises awareness of Copernicus products, but it also empowers citizens. So they start to become consumers of the information and not just, we're here to passively collect information from you. We want the information to be consumed by citizens for their own decision making. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just give you some examples of these tasks from projects that we've done at EASA. This gives you an idea of some of the skills that citizens need before I talk about skills required for building these kinds of applications and running these kinds of citizen science projects. Okay, so the first example for image interpretation is an application we built a long time ago called GeoWiki. This is from one of the old interfaces, but the idea is that it brings together Earth observation data. So in this case, it was Google Earth imagery, and we match that with global land cover maps. So then this is the kind of Copernicus side and the Earth observation side as well, products from Earth observation. And we simply ask citizens to look at the imagery and tell us how good the land cover maps are. So you can see an example, the American product Modus says cropland, and you can clearly see cropland, and the other two products say something entirely different. So it's also about raising awareness that these products aren't necessarily perfect, but we wanted to collect this kind of reference information. However, we very, very quickly understood that these interfaces on their own citizens don't just come to these interfaces and give us the data. We have to run campaigns. So over the last decade, we've run 10 or so campaigns. This is just one example to give you a flavor. So this was about global field size. So this was trying to understand the global distribution of the size of agricultural fields, which has, so the red are very small fields and very small fields. So this is basically smallholder farmers. And this is all about food security. So that's the context. But you can see that over a 4-week period, we gathered 390,000 observations of field size so that we could really map it and start to understand the distribution. And we modified the GeoWiki application, which I showed in the previous slide, for each of these different campaigns. So as mentioned, over the last 10 years, we've gathered quite a lot of reference data for different Earth observation applications. Okay, the second example is another tool that we've built called PicturePile. So it's a little bit different than GeoWiki in the sense that it's about rapid image classification, but on a mobile device, although it can also be done using a browser, so a desktop. But the idea is that there are single images or pairs of images if you want to do change detection, and you just rapidly classify them by sliding the image to the right for yes, no, left, or to the bottom, either not usable or maybe if you're unsure. So it's kind of like a Tinder application, but for Earth observation. And then we've since made it more general. And so you can have not just yes, no, and maybe, but for example, how wealthy is a location? And you can slide the image towards the dial to a different degree, or what do you see? So the one on the far right is a crop type. So that's coming from Street View and Mapillary. And so you just would slide the image in the direction of the crop type. So lots of different ways of gathering reference data very, very quickly using this application called PicturePile. But I wanted to raise this also because we have this new PicturePile platform. So we've run, again, a lot of campaigns with this, but the idea now is PicturePile platform is something that anyone can come to with their own pictures. This can be private sector, this can be public sector, and they want their images classified quickly. And the platform will be free for use if all data are shared. And there will be model that involves costs if the data are not to be shared. But that just gives you another idea of visual interpretation. And then for the in situ data collection, we built an application for PhotoQuest Go. And this really, again, is linked to Copernicus. So we took the Lucas data points. I think Lucas was mentioned yesterday in the talk by René. And so we took the Lucas data points and we put them into this application along with other data points. And we asked volunteers to go out in the field and find these locations and tell us what the land use and the land cover is. And we used the technology, so that the phone, to help with this. So for example, we asked people to use that kind of faint line you can see, so that 2/3 of the picture is land and 1/3 is sky. We used the compass of the phone so that people would take pictures in different directions. So what this is actually doing is very loosely based on the Lucas protocol that professional surveyors would use, but we asked citizens to see whether they could actually go out and gather this information. But the good thing is that we had the Lucas data, so we could compare the results of what citizens were doing against professional surveyors. And that gave us a really good idea about quality and the fact that citizens are actually pretty good at it. And then afterwards, once they took the pictures, to tell us what the land cover is, using these kind of decision trees and what the land use is. Again, the same kinds of protocols that would be used by Lucas surveyors, although much less detailed than a Lucas surveyor. But this is an example of an in situ data collection. And then finally, I wanted to draw this example that I talked about in the previous slide about urban living labs. So we had a project called Flood Citizens, and we invited citizens, local authorities, flood managers to come together and co-design an early warning system for pluvial flooding. And so the mobile app that you see on the left, that's for collecting information on pluvial flooding events. And that was co-designed with input from citizens. And then on the right, you see this example of your DIY kits. So that's a rainfall sensor on the bottom right. So it was in my backyard, for example. And the rainfall it's just an acoustic sensor. So the rain falls on it, it creates sound, and then that gets recorded and translated into rainfall. And then you see some pictures from events we had where we built these sensors together. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea of some of the citizen science projects that we've been involved in and the relationship between EO. Here also EO was involved. So the early warning system relied on radar data. So it was quite a holistic solution to building this early warning system. Okay, so really then getting to the types of skills required for building these kinds of projects. So it's actually quite complicated, but it's much of the same things that have been mentioned previously. So we have programmers with web mapping skills, app developers, and game developers. So we have a lot of gamification in our application, so that people really compete for something. There are incentives and there's a leaderboard, and those game developing skills are quite, they're quite sought after. But luckily we have a game developer who is also a graphic designer and an app developer at the same time. But we have other app developers and web mapping programmers. So quite heavy on that side. Then we have a set of data analysts. So again, they have skills in GIS and spatial databases. So there's a spatial database that sits behind all these applications. We have data analysts with strong statistical skills, also many with AI, machine learning, data fusion, computer vision increasingly. A lot of these are actually mathematicians, but they pick up these skills very, very quickly. And then I highlighted data quality. So the big thing with citizen science is data quality. So do we trust the data? And we spend a lot of time processing the data, filtering it, and coming up with ways to improve data quality. I also put open data there because I saw a job advert yesterday for University College London. They wanted to hire a citizen science coordinator for citizen science in the university. And one of the things they put on the application was knowledge of open data. So I mean, we always try to put our data out in repositories and publish it. But I think open data is a big key skill, and of course, data standards, so that everything can talk to each other and be interoperable. And then finally, we have skills and engagement. And so this is kind of the softer skills that, managing these projects, the design of the project from the very start to the, to publishing the results, expertise in recruitment. And then once you onboard people, how do you sustain that participation? We need strong skills in communication, social media savvy, skills in building good training materials for these citizen science projects so the citizens understand what they need to do. Skills increasingly in storytelling. So really, we're increasingly creating little videos, and then fundraising and proposal writing. I think this is very important. These projects don't run on their own. They really require funding. And so we have all these kinds of skills required as well. Okay, so in terms of how to bridge these skills gaps, I mean, I've gone to the sectoral skills strategy, and I think the three that were outlined are very good, to promote and reach out to end user communities. That could be through roadshows, internships, etc., to provide a platform for collecting and testing ideas for end users. And I think that platform could also link to a lot of the existing networks like the European Citizen Science Association, EU Citizen Science, which was a Horizon project that is kind of a place where there's lots of resources for citizen science projects. To increase efforts to develop skills and stimulate innovation and entrepreneurship, I think that's also a really important way to bridge the skills gap. And I like the idea of these dynamic learning environments. So a sandbox as your platform, the living labs, which I already mentioned, we use as well. I think they're great ways of involving people. And then my take on this was, I think just embedding citizen science into the curriculum at all different levels, primary, secondary levels. And I've seen this happening in many places. So the Globe Observer program is a really great example. It's also in Europe. It's not just an American program. And it's really getting the kids out and measuring things and then putting that online so they can see it geographically and picking up lots of different skills. And then the Dutch cadastre was mentioned. So they have a great program as well. And I think there are many others. I'm only just mentioning a few here. Have a great program involving school children in the actual cadastre and learning about geographical information. And then sensebox.de, this is a really nice project from the University of Munster, where they go into schools and the kids come up with the ideas, and then they take the pieces of the sensebox and they put it together. So for example, counting traffic. So they'll learn how to put the pieces together so they can count traffic. So that's another nice example. And then we also have internships at EASA where high school students come and they spend time with us and learn about citizen science. And then we're increasingly seeing citizen science being embedded in higher level education. So here I'm just pointing out University College London's MSc in Citizen Science. So I put a link there, and all those bottom screenshots are examples of courses. So you can see there are foundations, there's the managing and the design that I mentioned, but there's also the more technical skills. So AI for the environment, technology. So really very, very interdisciplinary and really covering a lot of different skills. And then I think just providing more opportunities for involvement, which can be linked to those other three objectives I mentioned previously about bridging the skills gap. So, hackathons, mapathons, more public participation. I think hackathons and mapathons are just a really great way to involve people. Sometimes hackathons tend to have highly skilled people, other times they're not. They're just about idea gathering. And I think that really fits in well with your idea of the sandbox. Okay, so this is my final slide. I just want to talk again about our latest project, which is called Co.Ltd. And again, it's linked to EO. So it's the collection of raw GNSS data, so data from navigation satellites like Galileo, for example, using a mobile phone. So we've created an app at EASA called the Co.Ltd app. And the idea is that you gather this data and it's used to then improve weather forecasting. So again, what are the types of skills that we needed for this project? So working with GNSS data is actually quite technical. We don't actually do that at EASA. So the project is actually led by ETH Zurich, and they are specialists in GNSS data. But that is a highly technical skill. Then there's the AI machine learning part. So part of Co.Ltd is building the infrastructure to take in this data, and there's all the machine learning. And again, that is actually being done at ETH, although we have some of those skills also at EASA. Programming the mobile app with the gamification. So there's a gamification element to this app, and it's built using a game engine. There's web mapping. So I know the map on the bottom left is not so clear, but those are the contributions we're getting. If you go to our website, you see it much more clearly. So already since launching in March, we've had contributions globally. Some in Africa, you'll see, some in Asia, heavily based in Europe, but also in Brazil, quite a few people logging data, GNSS data for us. And then again, citizen engagement and communication are a big one. We've put a lot of effort into promoting this campaign, and press releases, videos, constant pushing out of information to keep people engaged. Okay, I hope that's given you a bit of an overview. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, very much for a very interesting presentation. Applause to you. Any questions? Yes, we have at least 2 questions from the audience here. Yeah, we start with Rob. Sorry, Danny, he was the first one to raise.
Hi, Linda, this is Rob Lemmens. Thanks for your presentation. The remark you made in the beginning that citizen science is not to be found in our body of knowledge, we should take, of course, very seriously. I checked it, and it does not appear as a concept as itself, but it does appear in descriptions in other concepts, which actually follows the issue that you made in the beginning, the point. It's under volunteer geographic information, but of course, we should take this serious and probably make a new concept, which is called citizen science. But thanks for that remark.
Okay, thank you. So, Debbie?
Well, continuing on what Rob is saying, we might need a separate body of knowledge in citizen science. Because our idea is not to put everything in the body of knowledge, in our body of knowledge, but in the future to have many bodies of knowledge using the same platform or approach, so that we can interconnect and use and reuse from other bodies. My question though was on your different projects. Did you define fixed or clear learning objectives for citizens to reach in those projects, or was it rather, as you say, it's more gaming, it's sandboxing, it's living labs, working together, learning together? Was it like that, or did you really fix more clear, hard learning objectives for the citizens involved?
Yeah, okay, very good question. So I would say for the in-situ data collection with the app and GeoWiki and PicturePile, so we tend to offer incentives. So I wouldn't call them learning objectives. I mean, you know what I mean? We're not, we don't, for example, have awareness raising or any specific goal. We say it's about helping science, but we offer incentives, and the incentives actually are varied. So some of them are monetary prizes, just small, and some of them are co-authorship on publications. This is a very popular one. And so of course it means that often the people who are involved tend to be PhD students and students. So it's a little bit self-organizing, if you see what I mean, because they are of course interested in being parts of publications. But at the same time, we send them the publication and we ask for their inputs, and they often give us good inputs. So it's kind of an interesting process is what I mean. So they're learning in that sense. But no, we haven't really done that. The Living Lab one was a different example because the Living Labs were run by a partner in Brussels, and that was really very different. Yeah, I mean, it was extremely well organized, these Living Labs. I mean, we had several of them. They tended to have the same people. We had really clear goals. And, you know, we started with kind of a clean canvas and just saying, what are your needs, to starting to wireframe technology and seeing whether they thought it was useful, and having stories throughout, so that they could see where they are in that narrative, where they are in that story, if that makes sense. But I take your point that we don't have the learning objectives that you might see in other citizen science projects, say coming out of the conservation and biodiversity field, where they might be linked to a master's, or they might be linked to a, you know, really learning something specific. I would say we tend to focus much more on the data collection and this kind of holistic idea that you are contributing to research questions. So there's always a research question driving our campaigns, and so people know that they're contributing to that broader research question, if that helps. So I hope I've answered that question.
Linda, thank you so much. We will be meeting Linda during the panel discussion later in the afternoon, and then we will have more opportunities to raise questions and come back to Linda's extensive experience with citizen science, and thanks once again for really highlighting the synergies between the citizen science and Earth observation and geographic information. So thanks for your presentation, and we'll see you later. So meanwhile, we say goodbye, and we have deserved, I have to apologize, we're 15 minutes behind the schedule. So, but I still think that coffee breaks are really saint, and we go for the coffee break until 11:15. So we are back at 11:15 sharp. And then we continue with our next speaker. So I apologize for the next speakers that you have to wait a bit, but I hope you can also have and grab some energizers and be back in full mood. Thank you, and see you in almost 20 minutes. Yes. Hi, dear friends. I warmly welcome you back to the final session of the conference, Shaping the EOGI Skills of the Future. And it's very difficult to start after the coffee breaks. And we were just discussing that if you finally meet physically and you have not seen each other for so long time in presence, it's always and it's a lot to discuss and a lot to talk about. But nevertheless, we return back to the agenda. And I kindly ask you to take your phones or tablets or PCs and connect to Menti once again, because we start with your engagement. Also for those who are online. So we are going to the platform menti.com once again. And the code is the same, 5277-2226. And we are opening the question. And this time you have to answer the question which states, can you provide some ideas on how skills development can support growth in the Earth observation and GI domain? So can you provide some ideas on how skills development can support growth in the domain that we have been discussing extensively these days? So what we can see is that we are not just talking about, and that has been, of course, the point winding throughout the EO4GEO project, is that we're not just discussing the technical skills, but the transversal skills are as important as technical ones. So internships might be an effective approach for skills development, focusing on integration between the Earth observation and GI. This what we have also covered, that we are actually seeking stronger synergies and integration of both parts, generation of new services, application development, generation of new products, creative problem solutions, skills for developing and delivering new products and services, EO skills since school programs, and that what we have also covered extensively, that we are not just focusing on the educational levels later in our professional growth, but actually starting from kids days. Actively offering upskilling training to alumni, for example, for geography courses, chasing policy trends. New tools get used and provide revenue. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will be tackling some of the aspects during the panel discussion with our very honorable speakers and panelists. And as I said, that all the answers are going to be collected and forwarded to the project team for integration in further activities of the EO4GEO Alliance. So thank you for your participation in this poll. And now we are moving on. We have slight changes in the program, and I have a pleasure to give the screen again, as much as I wish to give the floor, but I have to give the screen to Anna Spiteri, and she has actually provided a very intriguing title for her presentation, because when I first saw it, I thought, IoT, so Internet of Things. Not in this case. So the title of her presentation is A New Look at the Interrelationship of Things in the EO and GI sector. And let me just say a few words about Anna herself. She is the managing director of the Integrated Resources Management, leader in public participatory GIS. And Anna has been in 18 international EU environmental research projects. And she is a creative person herself. And she says she's at the same time also a critical thinker and enjoys questioning everything. So I also encourage you who are present and also those who are online to take this challenge and pose questions to Anna after her presentation. Anna, welcome. I hope you hear us and you're with us. We apologize for a bit delays in the program, but yeah, that's happened nowadays. So Anna, welcome, and the screen is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am very happy to be here with you. Unfortunately, on a screen, I would have preferred to actually be with you in person, but nothing to do. So I think somebody is taking care of the slides.
Yes, we are controlling them.
Okay, so I can start. Okay. Yes. Okay. So,
yes, please.
okay, I have to say it was not so easy for me to prepare this presentation because I really had to think. I know everybody already would have said everything that is obvious. So I had to go and say things that were not so obvious. So here goes. These are some of the concepts I will be throwing at you. And we'll see where it takes us. Okay, next. I always like to start with a question. I'm sure you've been asked this, but maybe it's not a problem to ask again. Why do we choose to study Earth observation? Why do we choose to go in this sector? What motivates us to go there? What do we do with them? What is our purpose? Whom do we serve? I think these are important questions that I would like you to reflect on at the end of the presentation and also after. Thank you. Next. So I've been through the strategy, and I think it's an excellent strategy. It does address what is asked of it from the skills agenda of 2016. It does cover all the technical aspects to do with the space sector. And of course, it is written in the given context of the current UN SDGs and EU Green Deal policies. The blueprint is meant to address skills shortages and unemployment. This was the blueprint of the whole exercise. But let us examine how the SDGs and the Green Deal are to serve as our guiding light, to motivate us, hopefully, to address environmental and other challenges we are facing at present. Next. The skills strategy also mentions that data and services are still underutilized. I've been hearing this now for all my career, these last 40 years. And their integration and added value is serving government, business, and citizens in the legs behind. So let us assume the skills strategy addresses all the gaps. So let us explore what needs to be done to turn the situation around. In the meantime, I have to announce, maybe all of you already know, that Horizon Europe is asking to do the same that EO4GEO did, and also the previous project Perseus. I think the call was just copied from previously, and again mentions these two words: what is the supply and how to meet the demand. And I have an issue with this because I do not like using this terminology of supply and demand and consider students as an abstract commodity. Next. Now, I'd like to introduce this man to you. actually coming across his books, The Matter with Things, Our Brains, Our Delusions, and the Unmaking of the Western World. This man made me understand what we are really going through. It explained many things and it answered many of my questions. And I hope it will do to you also. He says that we are very short-sighted because we're viewing the world only through the left brain. We have a way of thinking which is reductive and mechanistic, and this has taken us over. And he says we behave like people who have right hemisphere damage. I mean, really, this is really what we are going through. We are going through a very mechanistic way of viewing the world. Next. Okay, so, of course, he says both brains are involved in everything, but we need to understand the complexity. The left brain sees things in pieces, in a linear, narrow beam. It manipulates, it jumps to conclusions, and the right is opposite. It's wide open, vigilant. It has no preconception, and the right hemisphere actually helps us understand. So we have fallen for the left brain avenue. We're doing everything, he says, with this one-sided way of viewing the world. Next. Okay, so this strategy and every call coming out from Brussels, everything we're doing is supposed to be done in the context of the UN Sustainable Agenda. Now it is UN Agenda 2030. So we have not eradicated poverty in the previous Earth summits, but we're going to do it now in 2030. We're going to have zero hunger by 2030, and what we're seeing may be actually the opposite. I highlighted some of the red ones, like gender equality and clean water and sanitation, because I was actually involved in this. In 1985, I was in Nairobi for the end of decade gender UN, whatever it was called at the time. And we were all very excited. Yes, maybe I was a young girl then, thinking that we can change the world. That was a very good thing that my previous speaker was talking about, being a young girl and thinking that you want to save the world. I've also been involved in meetings to do with the clean water conferences. In the previous in Rio, there was a very big conference in Dublin. And we were going to do it. We were going to solve water problems in the world. We actually did believe it, you know. Anyway, I can go on and on and on. So are these going to really shape our future? Do these really reflect the real world we live in? Are these our guiding light, however much we like them to be? There is no political will. You see what the world is happening now. This is not what is the direction we're taking. There is no implementation capacity in place and no funds. So what is this UN Agenda 2030? Okay, next. So we go to the Green Deal. Now, I have to say that this really gets me, right? Everybody now is going for electric cars, and this is the direction. But if we have the raw materials, and we don't have in Europe all these raw materials of lithium, copper, platinum, and other metals, even just to extract them, the environmental impact of this supply chain, and not to mention the carbon footprint, would be larger than the impact of oil, gas, and coal production today. If you look on the right, this machine needs 500,000 pounds of earth to get the minerals needed for one Tesla car battery. And in the meantime, it's burning 1,800 gallons of fuel. So is this sustainable? Or is this environmental illiteracy? Is this more left brain linear thinking? I can also imagine that there would be an Horizon 2050 calls that would include, that will say, please, the topic is, the scope is how to safely dispose of lithium batteries. Do you see this happening? Because I do, actually. And I really wouldn't be laughing there anymore. Okay, next. So we are now even bombarded with more things happening in the cutting edge technologies. It's not just data science. We've barely learned machine learning. Now we have to do quantum computing, AI, neural networks. I think the book of knowledge needs to get thicker and thicker, right? And ESA has the CubeSat, and so we're going to have more and more data. And yeah, are we going to have more technologies, more bureaucracies? The space ecosystem is already very, very busy with networks of networks of networks. With this new call that is being, I think, evaluated now, will this suggest more networks, more book of knowledge, or other things building on it? I mean, is this just a cacophony of what we are being crowded in, right? I put a picture of Niels Bohr and Max Planck on the right there, who actually did come up with quantum theory with just a pencil and the chalk. And if they would be alive now, they would say, oh, this is more left brain domain, more left brain thinking, more linear thinking. We're not going anywhere, we're just going in the same direction in a very narrow beam. Next. Okay, this is actually, I'm always mentioning this everywhere. Please, data is not knowledge. Okay, I have nothing against cutting edge technologies and I enjoy every one of them if I can learn them. But is this going to be, and everything that comes out is going to be a necessary skill? So in the next EO4GEO call, we're going to add up all the new technologies because it's going to be considered a skills gap, right? Well, GISIG says science is as good as the scientist. Well, just as technology is as good as its user, right? Well, my favorite, I have this favorite quote from Clifford Stoll, because he says you can use all the quantitative data you can get, but you still have to distrust it and use your own intelligence and judgment. And I really like that. Next. So which way to go? That is the question, actually. And there at the bottom, I again put this across. Why do we choose to study Earth observation? Why do we go in these areas? What do we want to do with them? Of course, if we stay on the left, in this linear roller coaster we're on, we lose the bigger picture. We have knowledge replaced by information. You know, we have loss of social cohesion, loss of concepts of human skill and judgment. And we remain spectators rather than actors. Or do we go to the right, using our right brain? So we shape the world we want. We need to change the context. That's what we need to do. Next. So the SDGs and MDGs and all the green deals are actually abstract narratives. They put a picture of the world in a much simpler world. It's not the real world we live in, but we all know that. They are ludicrously out of touch with what experience tells us. We need to get off this roller coaster, get out of the ever-increasing cacophony. We need to create a new story for us. As a community, we have an important role to play. We have the ability to monitor changes, make meaningful maps, do forecast, but with added understanding, with responsibility, and especially with local tangible knowledge. It's not just data manipulation. And then, if we go there, then we start being more credible. We become more of service, and then there will be a demand for us. Because if we go there with understanding, we will start solving real problems. Next. So the emphasis is not just on learning soft skills, but actually going through the learning process. is going through thinking and planning. We do need holistic education that includes the humanities. And we need to study EO, GO, GI, whatever, because we have a vocation to do it, because it means something, and not just try to fit in the economy and the growth and the economy drive. And we don't need a fixed curriculum, no. It's not a one size fits all. This is what globalization is making us do, go there. We need to step off this train. We need to reflect the needs of the locality, of the region, or the country we live in. And we need a curriculum, a flexible curriculum that draws on the interrelationships between people and nature and their corresponding needs for EOGI science and technology. But my last slide is actually, next, you can put me the last. My last slide is actually to thank you to give me this opportunity to put across my brief reflections. And I seriously wish to encourage you to continue discussing where you want to go with this community and to be of service. And yes, I would be Gary down there, going the other way. Thank you.
So much for this let's say, thought-provoking presentation, and really highlighting the big challenges that we also have to be very open to discuss and face very openly. And yes, so thanks once again. We're ready to take questions from the audience, if there are. Yes, Danny, please.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for this inspiring talk. It's always good to have some critical observations and thoughts, especially when you do 4 years or walk in a certain direction for 4 years. Do you think, because in the strategy, I assume you have seen the strategy, we stress in one of the objectives a lot the link to the citizens, and also to go towards a more experimental learning environment where also individuals can directly connect and participate. On the other hand, we tried also in the project to what we call to work more on case-based learning rather than strict curricula. Also, you mentioned that we don't need fixed curricula. I think it's also one of our conclusions that okay, we need programs and initiatives that are fixed, etc., but you need also a lot of dynamic initiatives and changes and modifications, etc. Do you think that going in the direction of citizen science can help to not trap or not step into the trap that you are describing?
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with you. Because when you're doing citizen science, you're normally going local. You're doing local projects, so you're getting local feedback. We have some experience of this in my company. We do actually a lot of crowdsourcing. We had projects where we did crowdsourcing and citizen science. And it is a lot of work to organize this, to actually encourage people to participate. So it is not easy. But this type of engagement, like previous speakers talked about, Linda, like living labs, for example, which we are also doing. This is the way to go, because this is the way you get to know what is really going on in your area and what needs to be done. This is where you can respond with EO and GI and whatever. This is the way to go. You're absolutely right. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, then thank you once again, Anna, but I kindly ask you to stay with us because we're going to continue with the panel discussion, and that will last for the next 45 minutes, and that is going to be our final part of this 2-day conference. And I'm very happy, actually, and what we are going to discuss in the panel is basically the points that we already highlighted or brought to our attention and discussed in the previous sessions and days. But basically we'll try to now pull everything together and kind of like lay a road and maybe mark the next steps, how to really address this skills gap in the domain of EO and GI and do it in a meaningful context. And I have a pleasure to introduce our panelists. The two of them are going to be online. One is present. So again, we experiment with the hybrid format, and I hope we will succeed with that. At least we're learning a lot these days. So let me introduce Dr. Simon Kay, a geographer with a long experience in the application of EOGI to European policy, starting in the 1990s with the technical reform of the Common Agriculture Policy to area-based payments and through today's needs for climate policy designed to increase climate ambition. And Simon today is the Deputy Head of Unit in DG Klima, Action C3, Low Carbon Solutions, Land Economy and Carbon Removals, and thus deeply involved in the vision for a climate neutral land use sector under the Fit for 55 package proposal of 2021. And it's a pleasure to welcome you back. Yes, Simon, because you have been with us in other events, like in Leuven, in the meeting. So it's good to have you here in presence. And yes, you will be seen in the camera. So so basically you can be partly like referring to the screen and when giving your opinions, then looking into the camera. So thanks for being with us again. And we have Linda C. We already heard Linda, but just let me remind you if we have somebody joining for this session only. So Linda is a senior researcher in the Novel Data Ecosystems for Sustainability Research Group at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. And prior to that, she was an academic in the School of Geography at the University of Leeds, teaching in the areas of GIS and geocomputation. And as we heard, obviously, her current area of research and passion is the exploration of synergies between citizen science, Earth observation, and geographic information. And last but not least, Anna, just recently, the managing director of Integrated Resources Management and leader in public participatory GIS. And the way we will proceed, I will pose the questions as the first round. And meanwhile, I strongly encourage all of you, still those who are with us online and the conference attendants in presence, to think of witty questions. And as you know, we have people who love being challenged with smart questions. And then we will go as a second round with the questions from the audience. And we will conclude with the final thoughts from all the panelists. Does it sound like a plan? Yes. Good, thank you. So let me start then with the first question, and I will come directly to what Anna you were mentioning in your presentation. So, in your opinion, then, what is the right context that needs to be created to ensure that there is a demand for EOGI skills, and how do we do that? How do we create this right context?
Well, I have to say that, of course, the UN agenda and the Green Deal, they all sounds very nice, and I have nothing against the concepts. But as I said, we all know that this will not be reached. So we have to create our own stories. I heard Linda before say that during the citizen science, you also had workshops with storytelling. I also believe in that. We've done that with farmers in different countries where they told us the stories of the land. And this changed the narrative. this changed the context in which we were working in. For example, in Egypt, we had workshops or participatory GIS sessions where the farmers, the very elderly farmers, were actually telling us that they remember how it was before the Aswan Dam was erected, was done, and how farming was done there, and what was good and what was bad, and what was not carried forward and what was left behind. So when we started doing these maps with them, this came true. So it was a very much a live exercise. And what we produced in the end, even in our reports or whatever, we brought this out, the voices of the farmers. And this was an interesting exercise, not just for us, but also for them, because we were listening to what they were saying. And this is actually the problem now. We are imposing on citizens our technology and saying, this is how it is, and not listening to what they're saying. And if we listen to what they're saying, we change the story, we change the context.
Thank you. So basically what you're saying is like we still respect the global agreements that different stakeholders have come to, but at the same time, we're also acting locally, respecting the local needs and the local context and the involvement of local communities. Simon, do you have something to reflect upon? Because I saw your facial expression. I have a privilege, to follow your facial expression.
Well, first of all, I think I'd like to say that I don't share as what I perceive as a rather pessimistic view on the Green Deal, obviously. No. So, okay, I'm deeply involved in the Green Deal. I'm one of the 50-odd people who put together the package that came out last year. But I think without talking about what the future will hold, we should also look what within the EU we've achieved with climate policy, with the targets that were set for 2020, where there has been a very successful fulfillment of what Europe said it would do. Maybe that's not the point to defend really on the Green Deal, but I do not share that quite so pessimistic view. But maybe on the rollout of policy and how, so I think it struck me this morning, until Ingrid mentioned it, there was actually almost no mention of any thematic connection. And I was incredibly pleased, of course, that she came up with climate as this very passionate subject that for which there was a very, very strong need for geographical data, but geographic information, which fits exactly into my role, my position inside the whole of the Fit for 55 work. But I definitely see a gap. There's a gap. Maybe the good news is the gap is at the top of the pyramid. It's really, yesterday I was in a workshop that was based in Flanders, and I was actually incredibly surprised how much the messaging of what we have tried to put out as European policy for climate fitted in. There was a link to geographic information. That's not so important for that workshop, but that there had been a very good absorption of the ideas and policy downwards, if you like. But there is still very much a gap at the top level. So the discussions that take place by the representatives of the population of the EU, and I'm only talking about the EU, I'm not talking about Egypt or anything else, I'm talking about the EU, that's my area of knowledge. There is still a total underestimation of how geographic information can benefit. And I don't know whether, it seems to be very clear that we have a base now of students coming from different domains, different subject areas, who understand and can utilize the geographic information, but perhaps it's not being translated at the level of the top policymakers. Because when I confront them with the examples in the meetings we have at council level, at bilaterals with member states, there's often some totally new knowledge being learned by the people who are representing the member states. So how to get that through, I don't know, maybe people have to become so also linked to the policymakers, and not only programmers and people who work with gaming development, etc. All these are essential. But I feel that there's a gap there still that is waiting to be broken through.
I totally share the feeling. What I see also back in my country, in Latvia, several years ago we designed a program for top-level decision makers and really on the basics of the Earth observation and remote sensing. And that is the audience that is very difficult to reach and actually to bring to the training. But that definitely is needed, and that actually leads me. Your comment leads me to two questions, and those questions, they go to all of you. And Linda, you can. I think our panelists can raise the hands, right, or give the notice that they have.
I can.
You can, for sure. But or just wave. We see you very clearly, so you can wave when you're ready to interfere. Let's say yesterday we heard and that Earth observation and GI is a driver of discoveries in other sectors and in other thematics, as you say, and can support significantly the green transition, the implementation of the climate policy. But that requires also the collaboration between different disciplines, between different knowledge bases, and different practices. So how to foster that, as you also highlighted. So we have one group, the policymakers, to reach to. How to do that, and where are the barriers that we have to bring down? Ladies, are you ready to respond to that, or?
But
Then you go. Yep.
Okay, so I mean, I can even bring a couple of quite concrete examples. I think one of the difficulty that exists is that this often takes place in a rather confrontational manner. And a very good point, I think, is in relation to policy on land management, biodiversity, interface, the interests of producers, maybe even lithium extractors, who I think that while we don't extract much lithium in Europe, the observation of where that has taken place obviously can take place, but maybe the analogy for me is better to look at forests. And we've seen for more than a decade, 2 decades, a huge discussion between the community of forest producers and the interpreters of Earth observation, who are basically talking cross purposes. So the traditional ground-based collection on a cycle that collects parameters that are tuned to the measurement of how high Napoleon decided that you would measure the diameter of a tree compared to how it's decided in other countries, because it's literally the eye of a Frenchman in the late 17th or early 19th century compared to a standardized 1 meter 25 or whatever. These kind of things change, of course, your perception of how you collect your statistics, and then you swap to something and you're going to use whichever type of Earth observation data. There's a major paradigm shift, which unfortunately we're going through this discussion now, which leads to all sorts of tensions and pushback, effectively, of looking at really what the core issue is, which is how do we manage our forests best for climate, and that doesn't just mean to leave the forest. That means how do we use the product, how do we use the wood, how do we make sure the land is chosen is correct, where do we make the decisions on how to protect against bark beetle or whatever. Masses of different decisions. But the discussion is essentially around the core geographic information. And that kind of desensitizing the discussion, I think, is a crucial step to at least on one barrier. But maybe there's a hand going up, I don't see.
So what you were calling for is actually very true and open dialogue, identifying the core issues and being respectful in the discussions, not openly just standing against each other, confronting each other, but having more empathy during that.
And understanding
yeah.
why the other community has developed its way of producing data, and how the data that are now produced can complement and enhance what perhaps already exists.
And that brings my thoughts back to the transversal skills that are very much needed when sectors are being crossed, right? Linda, I think I saw you somehow giving the notice that you have something to say.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a big part is just getting people to the same table. And once you get them to the table, they start talking. So we have one example from Ghana, where they came to us and said, you know, we need help with SDG indicators. And so we focused on marine plastics. And then we found there's actually lots of projects going on in Ghana, collecting marine plastic data. And then you just had to sit absolutely everybody at the table. So that included the Environmental Protection Agency in Ghana, with the National Statistical Offices, with the UN, so that they could look at the data and agree that actually it's really useful. And then they use that to report officially on that indicator. But that took a lot of effort just to get everybody to talk to each other. But once they sat down at the same table, I would say it was very, very successful. Then I have one other very small comment. It's about the mindset of policymakers. So I had a project working with local authorities, and we produced beautiful maps, loads of maps, like